Okay, today we are back in the creative corner with another author, Ren Lowe. So, Ren, thank you for joining us in the creative corner on Create and Hustle. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Um, I'm listen. I'm doing the best that I can today.
That is fair. That is fair.
But I just want to welcome you to Creating Hustle. We like to ask creators how they took their ideas and turned it into a business. So I just want to ask you, like, how did you get started with writing? Like, what type of books are you putting together? Like, let us know a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so I've been writing since I've been in about the fourth grade. That's when I found my passion for writing. I fell in love with journaling because my teacher would have us journal every day. And it really opened up the space for me to creative write and things of that nature. So that is where I first fell in love and found that that was like my thing. I began to create like little short stories, and she would let me read them to the classroom and um, things of that nature. So shortly after that, I got introduced to Maya Angelou's books and poetry. Every time we would go to the library, I was the kid. I wanted the new books that like sat at the top of the shelf, and so I was looking for the.
You want to know what's funny? Like the smell at the book fair was always like the thing. And I remember, like for me, Goosebumps, like specifically the way Goosebumps book used to smell. It random, but
It's nostalgic. Like yeah, it is. It is something about those. And I know we have our ebooks and Kindles and stuff nowadays, but it is something nostalgic about a physical book and that turning the pages
what's
and
your
things that
preference when you're reading?
a physical book. My preference is pen and paper, anything like that. Physical books. I am getting more into audio books just because I'm an entrepreneur. I have two kids. I'm a stay at home busy, so I still got to get it in. So I can't always physically be holding the book. So, but whenever I get a chance, I prefer a physical book.
Okay, we are in the creative corner on Creating Hustle on ESPN Richmond, 106.1 Richmond. And Ren, I just want to ask you, I had a lot of authors on here, but one of the things I haven't asked them is about the creative process. And
Hmm.
we like to ask creatives about what their ideas were and how they took them and turned into a business. So tell me about how you plan when you're about to start a new book. Like, how does the planning process look for you?
So the first thing, well, I write a series. So the first thing that I think about when I'm planning a book is what I actually want to happen. So all of the events and the things that I want to take place in the book, and then I kind of jot those down. Now, when we're getting into the more intricate details of how the book actually comes to life, that's something different. But in my creative space, when I'm just wanting the story to come together, I really think about what is everything that I want to take place in this story. And then I write those events down. And then from what I've written down, I write on that certain event. So I may not even write the book in its actual order because I might be feeling a certain an idea might pop in my head and I might say, "Oh, I want my character to go on this adventure. Let me write about that moment and that adventure." So that is what the creative process looks like for me. That is work well. That's what works well for me, and I actually encourage others that experience writer block in whatever they do. Now, I am a fictional children's book author. I write picture books, but I find that I guess strategy helps whenever you're writing. Most people we're taught sequence. We're taught, okay, the beginning, the middle, the end. We're taught the structure. But what creative do you really know that is structured when they're in their creative mode?
Yeah.
So I have to get out, separate that and say, okay, this is your creative moment. Yes, you know the structure when you're writing, but right now you're just trying to get the story. So get it out however you need to get it out, and then you can go back and organize it. So that's what it kind of looks like
I like
for
that.
me.
Actually, that sounds really good, and it makes sense. Like an organized process. Listen,
Yes.
it's something that is important and something that you have to find early. We're in the Creative Corner on Creating Hustle on ESPN Richmond 106.1 with Ren Lowe, author. Um, and also speaking to the creative process, tell us like for someone if they wanted to write books and they just said, "Oh well, there's enough writers out there. I don't think that my ideas are original." Like, talk about how like there could be a McDonald's and a Burger King.
Yes. So I know everyone has probably heard now of the bread aisle analogy. We go shopping in the grocery store and you see all of these different brands of bread, and you have your preference. And based on that shopper, that shopper is going to pick their preference. It may be based on ingredients. It
Yeah.
may be based on generations. Well, my mama used this. My mama got this bread. My granny used this bread. So it's the same thing when it comes to writing and writing books and being an author. You have readers that have a preference and they're going to prefer your story. Someone else can say, "Hey, Ren, I know you and your daughter write about magical brown unicorns, but my daughter also loves unicorns, and I had this idea of writing about a magical brown unicorn too. I just beat them to the punch, right?" Write your story about your magical brown unicorn, because it's still going. Your unicorn may look different from mine. Somebody might prefer the way your brown unicorn looks
Looks.
versus the way mine looks. So it's all about preference and being comfortable in your skin and who you are, and not worrying about if you're there's a difference when you're being inspired by someone that is doing the same thing as you versus copying and mimicking. Hey, if I'm inspiring you and our thing looks just alike, that's fine. Take that inspiration and then go create it and make it your own. But you can't look at what other people are doing just because it's similar to what you are doing, because your story and my story, it might be similar, but we might tell it different. And my audience might not prefer the way you tell the story, but your audience does prefer it. So that is what I would say to that. I guess that's the best way that I can break it down. So
I
no,
like that.
the
Yeah.
market is not oversaturated. We can never have enough books, especially by authors of color, black and brown authors and people of color. We only, and I don't, I'm losing using the term dominate, but we only take up 12% of the market space when it comes to published books and children's books and things of that nature. So it may seem like, in the grand scheme of things, it may seem like, oh, well, we have, enough people doing but we don't. We don't, and our stories are different. So tell your story, write your book.
Another question that I have for you is as far as like the digital book world, being able to publish your own books and upload them, how quickly did you see profit from when you started uploading books? Like what, like, is it something that's kind of like a snail where it's like, okay, it's crawling, or, and also the second part of that question is, would you recommend putting out one book, pushing that, or
Mhm.
like you said, do a series such as you and putting out those options? Like, what do you recommend?
So I'll answer the second part first. I definitely recommend, especially self-published authors, to, even if you're not going to write a series, for one, just a little gem series sell very well, and that's how you're able to sell, what I've experienced as my experience, sell more books, because I have a series of books. So, but even if you're not writing a series, you want to, as a self-published author, write more than one book, because it's a combination of the quality of your book, but also the quantity of books that you have out, in order to really, if you're really wanting to be a full-time self-published author. So I would say write as many books as you can. Make sure they're quality, but write as many books as you can if you really want to see the profit from it. Now, when it comes to how soon you'll see that profit, it honestly depends on your book. It honestly depends on your targeted audience, and if someone is looking for what you're writing about. If someone is looking for what you're writing about, honestly, you can release that book and you can see profit immediately. Now, ultimately, and being an author is passive income, so you see that income grow over time. However, like I said, depending on what you're writing about and the quality of your book, you can release a book and it just really takes off. But just as a rule of thumb, I would say give yourself about 6 to 8 months before you really start seeing a profit, as in return on your investment, and really like, oh, okay, my book has now paid for itself, and now I'm starting to see this profit. And I mean, one book alone you can average between $500 to $1,000 a month from one book. So imagine if you have 2 books or 3 books, or like 7 books, like me, or more. So
Listen, and that's why I want to ask that question, because I know some people who just been pushing, authors that I know who've been pushing that one book for forever. I'm like, is there another book? But I know they do a lot of hard copies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
The last question that I have for you is, where do you go to promote your books? Like, what avenue for you is probably the best avenue?
So I've seen the most success with social media, and honestly, I was not that please, I was never like a social media person. It was like, oh, I gotta get on social media. However, pandemic hit. You have to learn how to pivot. You have to, and then we're just moving towards a more social media based technology world. You're seeing even the big brands, all of them have social media pages now. Everybody has a TikTok or Instagram and things of that nature. So I had to embrace it. And because I did embrace it, it worked well for me. So my main, I guess, social media platform that I use more often for expanding my books, or I guess exposure to my books, is TikTok. However, I use my Instagram because I also help other authors or inspiring authors publish books as well. So for my audience that is looking to publish books, I use my Instagram more to find them. But for exposure and to gain exposure for my books, I use TikTok, and it works very well for me.
Great advice. Great advice. So, Ren, can you give them a little bit about where they can find you on social media? And also tell them a little bit about your services that you offer, because you just mentioned that as well.
Yes. So I can be found on TikTok at Ren Lowe Author. I can be found on Instagram at Ren Lowe Author. Our book series, I write books with my daughter. So our book series is called My Magical Brown Unicorn. You can find us on Instagram there as well. And then my book publishing services is called Brown Unicorn Publishing. And what I do, it's a done for you service where pretty much you bring me your story or your idea. If you have a children's book, journal, coloring book, cookbook, you bring me your idea, and I do all of the work to bring that idea to life and actually turn it into a book that you can then sell on whatever platforms you desire.
Well, people, you heard it first here in the Creative Corner, where we've been speaking to author Ren Lowe on Creating Hustle on 106.1 FM Richmond, where we ask creatives how they took their ideas and turned it into a business. Thank you again, Ren, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.